What's up, everyone? Thanks so much for hanging out today. Okay, so today we are gonna be kicking off a new series called Your New Playlist. Now, speaking of songs, have you ever gotten one stuck in your head? Of course you have. At some point, we're all cursed or blessed, depending on how you think about it, by this phenomenon. And it's called an earworm, by the way. It could be a song that you love and it could be a song that you hate. But one thing is for sure, wherever you go, the song is going with you. Now, when you have a song that's stuck in your head, it pops up all throughout the day. You know, there's no real rhyme or reason to it. You can find yourself singing it when you're getting ready in the morning, or when you're at line in Starbucks, or when you're hanging out with your friends at night. It just shows up wherever and whenever it wants to. For example, those of you who have a younger sibling or you've babysat for a job, there is a chance that at some point, this song was stuck in your head and there was nothing you could do about it. You probably already know where I'm going with this. Baby shark do 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 do, baby shark do do do. You know the song. Okay, you can thank me later for planting that earworm in your mind again. How about this throwback to your childhood? So I put my hands up, they're playing my song, butterfly fly away, yeah. Come on, Miley Cyrus, Party in the USA. What a classic. All right, how about this throw all the way back, like all the way back? You know, renegade, 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 renegade. I don't even know the Macarena dance, I don't know. Anyway, I know that you'll be singing all three of those songs all weekend long. But today, we're not just talking about songs that get stuck in your head. We're talking about another thing that gets stuck in our mind, the thoughts that we think. Now, did you know that the average person thinks about 70,000 thoughts per day? That's wild. And this means that over the course of a year, you and I will think over 25 million thoughts. That's even scarier. We have words that we will tell ourselves and the things that we will believe to be true about who we are. And then that's our mental playlist. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I wish mine were a little different. Yes, it started for me way back in high school. I started auditioning for all these commercials and plays. I just wanted to be an actor through and through. And so auditioning was a part of my normal routine, and I was used to getting told no, but this particular audition, I was so sure, I was so confident that I had it in the bag. And so I went to this audition, I sang my best, I did my best monologue, I was kind of like, you know, arrogant with it, like I just knew that I was killing it. And anyway, the casting director stops me in the middle of my audition and she says, "No thanks, we're going in a different direction." And I'm like, what? And I just remember being in the car on the ride home, just obsessing over what I did wrong. Like, was I not attractive enough? Was I not talented enough? Was I not funny enough? If I'm not a good singer, if I'm just wrong. And I remember years later, I found out I simply didn't get the part because I was just too young. But all of those years, for so long, I just had all these thoughts in my mind like I just wasn't good enough. So for a very long time, those words just played on my mental playlist over and over. It was way worse than having Baby Shark stuck in my head. No, seriously, I wish that I had some noise-canceling headphones to drown out those thoughts, but I didn't. It was like 1 minute I'd be fine, and then the next minute I'd be thinking, who turned up the volume on all these negative thoughts? So what about for you? Does it ever feel like your thoughts are just crashing a party you don't even remember inviting them to? Your college application has your stress dialed all the way up to an 11, and now all you can think about is how worried and nervous it all makes you feel. Tryouts have you so on edge, just picturing how bad it might go that you almost talk yourself out of going. You keep replaying that fight with your friend on a loop in your mind until it just becomes the only thing you can think about. You're trying to do your homework, you're trying to eat dinner, you're trying to get ready for school or hang out with your friends. You're trying to go to sleep. But no matter what, you just can't shut off the playlist of negative thoughts running through your mind on repeat. Am I gonna fail this test? Am I good enough to make the team? Will my friend and I ever be the same after this drama? On and on and on, it just keeps going, right? Some people call that overthinking. That's what happens when what you think gets in the way of, well, anything else. No matter how hard you try to distract yourself or think about something else or turn the volume all the way down on any and all unhelpful thoughts, that playlist just keeps going on a loop. Maybe you've heard people say things like, stop overthinking, or it's all in your head, or it's not that big of a deal. Maybe you even think I'm about to say that to you right now. Don't worry, I'm not. Because I know that changing the soundtrack of our thoughts isn't that simple. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. I really believe that there's a way to turn down the volume on those negative thoughts that are stuck in your head. And that's exactly what we're gonna talk about today. The Bible is divided into two sections. There's the Old Testament and the New Testament. Now, the Old Testament are the books of the Bible that record what happened before Jesus walked the earth. And the New Testament consists of the books that accounted the time after Jesus walked the earth and beyond that. But ultimately, whether it's an Old Testament or a New Testament book, they all point to Jesus. The first 4 books of the New Testament are called the Gospels, and they are the accounts of Jesus' life when he lived among us. The first book of the New Testament, the first gospel, is the book of Matthew. Now, Matthew records a sermon that Jesus preached. It's famously called the Sermon on the Mount, which simply means it was a message that Jesus delivered on the side of a mountain. And in it, Jesus talked a lot about what your life would look like if you had a thriving, everyday faith. He covers all kinds of topics, and then he kind of turns to the audience and says this: "So don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's trouble is enough for today." Now, the people hearing this sermon had a lot of things that they could be worried about. And Jesus is saying, when the playlist in your head is filled with a ton of stress and worry, you don't have to leave it on repeat. Instead of worrying about yesterday or focusing on tomorrow, Jesus reminded us to stay focused on today. Jesus reminded us to turn the volume down on overthinking and worrying about what might or might not happen tomorrow, to stop the playlist of anxious thoughts, to choose instead to turn up the volume louder on something better. Here's what I want you to remember. You create your playlist, and I create mine. And we can turn down the volume on the thoughts that are not helpful. We can change the playlist running through our minds. We can start focusing our thoughts on what Jesus is doing in our lives today. Now that's easier said than done, right? And wouldn't it be so nice if we could just simply read these words from Jesus and magically apply them to our lives? If we could just immediately stop overthinking and worrying about tomorrow and start focusing our energy and the thoughts on the here and now instead? But the reality is this: it's gonna take some practice. Changing the playlist in your head is possible, but it won't happen overnight. And it won't happen without some help. And I think that's why Jesus said something else to help us here. He didn't just tell us to stop worrying. Jesus actually told us what he can do for us when we're worrying. He gave us a way to turn down the volume on all those negative thoughts and those anxious thoughts. Now, take a look. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now take a minute and think about the unhelpful playlist that's running through your mind. Consider the unhealthy, the negative thoughts that sometimes make up your mental soundtrack, the stuff that increases the volume of stress and worry and anxiety. And when it crosses your mind, it feels heavy, right? Well, in the same way an animal shares a heavy load with another animal with the help of something called a yoke, Jesus was saying, hey, give me the weight of those unhelpful thoughts. Let me carry the heavy load of your anxious thoughts. I can take all that worry for you. I can show you a different way to live your life. If you follow my ways, if you put on my yoke, or live the way that I tell you and show you is best, you'll experience a better way to live. And we can ask Jesus for his help. We can focus on what he says is best and true. We can create our playlist, but we can base it on the words of Jesus and his truth. And then we can ask him to help us play it and rest in it. So here's the question: what are you overthinking? Now, right now, I want you to write down some things that are stressing you out. What are you overthinking? What are the thoughts that are weighing you down? You can even write it in code if you're worried about someone seeing what you're writing. Now, I bet you want to turn down the volume on that unhelpful playlist, right? And I want you to start with that. I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. Is this thought true? Is this thought helpful? And is this thought kind? If the answer to any of those questions is no, that's your sign. It's time to turn down the volume. And here's how. Ask Jesus to carry it with you. Remember, Jesus didn't just ask us to stop overthinking. He offered to help us by carrying the weight of our thoughts with us and showing us a better way to think and live. We can ask Jesus for help and be confident that we're never alone. We can literally give him those things that we just wrote down. And finally, replace that playlist with a better one. You can replace those old songs and that old playlist with new ones that tell you the truth. Start by reminding yourself what's true about you and about what Jesus says about you. In a book of the Bible called the Psalms, which is a collection of songs and poems that people wrote to and about God, a writer shared this truth about replacing his thoughts with truth. When doubts filled my mind, your comfort gave me renewed hope and cheer. When doubt, worry, stress, or any kind of overthinking fills our minds, we can turn to the truth of who God is to help. We can replace our doubt with hope, our worry with cheer, and our stress with the peace of Jesus. When you start overthinking and that playlist in your head gets negative, remember, you create your playlist. And one of the best ways to begin is with the help of others looking to do the same. This is why we have small groups. In groups, we can work together to focus on what's good, what's true, and what's best for us. So I hope that you'll share a little bit of how you're working to change your playlist with your group today. And as you do, I want you to think about this question. What's one thing I tend to overthink?